So this is on protecting your time. Like, so often we get caught up in these side projects that take us away from the direction that we actually wanted to be heading in. I have a couple examples here. One of them, one of the rooms in my house, the LED track lighting made this humming noise, which would give me a headache after being in that room for about 20 minutes. So I then proceeded to took me a couple orders, a couple different tries on Amazon to find the correct bulbs, because for some reason they sent me 50 hertz bulbs to a US house which has a 60 hertz, like US 60 hertz for the electrical. And there's a whole issue with that, but we eventually found the right switch and the right bulbs to stop the humming from happening. And then my family's like, why don't we do the rest of the bulbs in the whole house and put those to LED and get away from fluorescent? I'm like, no. Like, if you want to take that on as your project, you can do it, but the bulbs work. Like, you know how much money we have to spend? Like, not even the money, but mostly the time. But, like, also, like, let's do it to save the money. Like, buying the new bulbs when we have bulbs that work, it's not going to save that much money. Plus, how often do we actually use those lights? Like, I don't know. Some rooms you don't really go in after it's dark out. Besides that, another thing was, I was in the kitchen one day and my grandmother were talking about, they make homemade vanilla, and they were discussing beans or something. Like, wouldn't it be like way more efficient, cost efficient, time efficient if you just bought like the cheapest organic beans you could buy, like the type that aren't necessarily the prettiest, but have some scratches, broken in half type things, cosmetic defects. Just buy the cheapest organic scratched up beans you can get, or even just like organic vanilla bean powder, which is probably made with the lesser quality beans. And for those who don't know, like, only grade A vegetables make it to the stores. The grade B vegetables either get thrown out or get made into like apple juice, applesauce and stuff. But that stuff goes for way, way cheaper. There's a huge premium just to get you that perfect apple exterior. And I made a comment. So I'm like, why don't you just buy the powder or buy the cheaper beans that are a little cosmetically defected and then blend those up and mix that, because you mix it with vodka. You soak vanilla beans, it's either vodka or gin, for like a couple months, and that's how you make homemade vanilla extract. And my family's really into baking, so they do it. But like, why don't you just get the grade B beans or the worser beans? And then a couple of days later, my mom's like, so Jason, do you want to like look into which beans to buy? I'm like, no. She's like, but you're talking about doing the beans. I'm like, I know. No, I'm not doing that. That's me giving you free advice on stuff that I think would be an improvement, because you're increasing the surface area. You're saving money by like buying lesser beans, because honestly it doesn't matter what the bean looks like. It's not going as a finish on the dish. But like, you're blending it up, which significantly increases the surface area. And I looked it up. The only downside to this method is that after you filter it through a coffee filter, it's not going to be like crystal clear extract. It's going to be like it can be a little foggy, but I mean, you're putting this in baking. It doesn't matter. So, but people literally will try to pull you into projects that they're working on, and even in work. Like, when I work for companies, just wondering how much I want to say about this one. We did a project with robotic integration, and even in my interview for the company, I brought up how I did not believe that the course they wanted to do with the project was the right one, and that it'd be much better to hire interns or co-op students and have them perform the tasks that we wanted the robot to perform, because they would have done it on such a higher level. But people get these ideas into their head, and if you don't question the idea soon enough, now it doesn't become, should we even be making the vanilla? Is that even a good use of our time? Should we even be replacing all the bulbs in the house? It becomes, ooh, which bulb do we replace them all with? This one or this one or this one? And you have to catch yourself before you go down that path and you get caught up in these projects. Like, I don't know, there's some people that aren't as busy and they look for tasks or activities to do, and they're like, oh, well, wouldn't this be fun if I do it with my friend? I mean, it might be fun to do with them, but you have to make sure that you understand that the time requirement it's going to take and what it's taking you away from if you have goals that you want to be moving towards. Especially if you're giving up time that you could be putting towards something else to put it towards that project. The other dudes. Yeah, I mean, no, I know those aren't like the best examples of this. I've had better ones, but if you look for it, it's there. You'll start catching yourself starting projects or like, oh, this is what happens when you don't catch yourself beforehand. So I have this really nice handmade wooden desk that two of them in my office, and I dinged up the top of it a little bit. So instead of just being like, okay, it's fine, it's a little dinged, I can live with that, I decided to try to refinish it, but the refinishing didn't go well because the polyurethane I used was expired, and the expired polyurethane never fully dried, which means I then had to strip it off with mineral oil or mineral spirits, and then sand out the top coat and refinish it, which wound up taking about 5 hours. So just like when you think about projects that you want to start, keep in mind they never finish on time. They never take as, like, I don't know, if you ever had a to-do list and you write down how many hours you think each task is going to take you, you know you have to double it by 2. Because if you're like, oh, well, this should only take me 20 minutes to do, you're so off. You're so bad at estimating time. At least I am. It's not even funny. So, I don't know. The point of this video is to say, think about the projects that you undertake, and before you undertake them, think about what's the best case scenario here in case everything goes to your plan. And then think about what happens when this goes over budget, over time, and what happens with that. Because things hardly ever finish on the budget you thought they would, or on the time scale you thought they would finish in. So keep that in mind the next time you start something. Peace out.